Hello! Today I'd like to talk about APIs, specifically the REST API. I have a very good example for you, one that doesn't require a password and is really good for just testing out how to make APIs. So to begin, I would like to discuss what exactly a REST API, which is really popular right now, what it actually looks like. So I can give you an example, but basically an API is meant to share information from an application to an application. So let's say you have Discord. There is a Discord API where you can request messages from a specific chat channel, and you could do all sorts of things to create bots by interacting with API and Python, and you're able to do a lot of things with stuff like that. I will give you an example of what an API looks like. So this is a old school, or let's say a 2012 private RuneScape server, and the developer made an API for the private server where he just plays with friends. The server is called Darken, and it's a REST API. Generally speaking, if you go to the Spotify API, the YouTube API, the Discord API, you go to, you can look up a lot of different APIs at Rapid. Oh, here it is. Do that again. Okay, rapidapi.com. This one I found by accident, the Darken one. There are so many, but if you're looking for another one to start a project, rapidapi.com is a place to go. They have the Amazon API, the Alibaba API, Google Shopping, Walgreens API. There are a lot where you could track Amazon prices and then create alerts for them, or you could hook it up to some kind of stocks trading statistics thing with the graphs and stuff. I think here we go, finance. So you're able to make sort of bots to tell you when to buy and when to sell, like these stocks options. Then you have there's this Bible verse one that I really like, where you can request a random Bible verse with a picture, and you're able to put that on your website with Python. So let's see, I will show you let's go to the Grand Exchange. So this is just an example. You don't have to play RuneScape, but basically the Grand Exchange in this video game is where you can buy items. And when you are in the Spotify API thing, and I'm showing you this one because it's simpler than the YouTube and the Spotify APIs, which are nice, but they're really complicated. Here, all you have to do is get a request from a web page, and you can do things. If you want to log in with your account, you just post or output an HTTP request to log into the server, right? That would be the idea. Or to check the available names, and you could do this from a command line where you're interacting with the RuneScape server. But generally speaking, when you are in an API documentation, this is what it looks like, this whole thing. And you get a URL, which is the actual web page, and you could take a look at it by copying and pasting it into a URL. And you take all of this information and you parse it. You convert it into information that you can use. This is called an endpoint, which is simply a URL, and you use this to do any kind of project. And it changes in real time almost. I think for this one, it's probably every 5 minutes or something. But I'm able to track the experience and levels of the players on the server and make some pretty cool projects. So that's the URL. This is what it looks like when it's all prettied up. You can see there's a party hat on there by one of the players. I probably have some items in there. So yeah, this is the way it looks, and you can do this for a bunch of different sections of the game, I would say, like what is being sold on the Grand Exchange, what's being bought, what's on the high scores, how many NPCs did you kill, make these NPCs drop certain items. There are a lot of things you can do. There's just And every API has a lot of things like this where there's just a lot of options. So it's up to you to be innovative and come up with a idea to make it pretty cool. So I will give you an example of a code request. I want to show you guys a app called Postman, and it makes APIs super easy. Yeah, I have some stuff to show y'all. So Postman, you install it and you put that URL, that endpoint, where is it? This one right here, the one that we got from the API doc. So you copy it, then you open up Postman after you have installed it, and you add it to collections. You make a new collection, it gets a folder. You can look up any tutorial on this, and then you can add a request, right? And it's it looks complicated, but it gets easier as you use it. And as you can see, I have like 1, 2, 3, 4 different GET requests that I'm working with. So I would call this Grand Exchange, GE, and then gimme GE info, info, right? And then just save to the, and this is all in local. Like, this doesn't even affect the server. The server is completely separate. And yeah, so you just put the URL here, and you should look up a tutorial on all of this on its own, because there's a lot to it sometimes, especially if you're doing certain things. So it formats it into, I believe, a JSON. There it is, yeah, the JSON or whatever. And it shows you all the items in a nice and pretty fashion. And you can use this to look up different sections of the API, which is useful if you're advanced. And my favorite part about Postman is that you can get the code without having to write it. Personally, and you could do it in a lot of languages. So all of these are languages. So if you wanted to do it in Java, you would click this and there you go. You get a string. There it is. If you were to do it in C, there it is. C#, there it is. But personally, I am using Python, and I like to use the request module. So you were to copy this code, and I'm going to show you that it shows up in the Python cells with whatever IDE you're running. So if we just copy and paste it, we press Shift Enter, there you go. You have, there it is. So you have the whole Grand Exchange right here. And if you were to check what type it is, right, what is the data type of this request, right? It will say, oh, usually it says string, but I guess it's bytes. Okay. I think it depends on whatever the API is. But now we can convert this string, which is just the general way of how we do things, right? Converting it, casting it to a string. The way I do it is I use a standard module called JSON, right? That's all it is. And let's make this text bytes. I personally thought it was a string, but apparently it's not. Text bytes. Let's change that to text bytes. Oops. Bytes. Alright, so there you go. Okay, so it's printed twice, and I wanted to check the type of once you've converted it to a data type that is compatible with Python, it is actually a list, right? That's the data type that is compatible with Python, not the bytes one. So now, if I were to call player info and I were to go to the first index, I would get right here the first item, knife, right? And I can just do a for loop for item in, I don't know why I have player info, I should put GE info. Maybe I was going to show you about looking up the scores, but oh well, we're doing GE today. And then let's print item. Doing the Python 2. Alright, so here it is. You have it per line. You have a knife, chef's delight, and what you can do there is take it apart, parse it, and use it to create some awesome projects. Personally, I created a project using API. Let me see, where is the... Yeah, so that's the parsing example. You use this to parse. I personally made a high scores little web page. It took me like a week because I was off and on with it, but I used Flask, and I used this Postman API section, and I put it in Matplotlib, which is an automatic graphing or visualization tool, and now I can look up different skills in different days, and this is just what I made with the API. So let's see what they did with their... Oh, maybe I'm not running it. Gotta run it. Okay. Pip environment shell. Gotta run the environment. And got it going. And then Flask. It's Flask, right? The framework. And I run the Flask. And let's refresh on our local host. I believe these are people I actually know in the game. Oh, there it is. Look at that. That is... It looks a little messy. I should probably spread out the data points. Let's do 14 days. That will look a little better. There you go. Because I haven't exactly refined this yet and worked on the front end. It's mostly just the graph. This graph took the longest time because I had to convert the bytes into a dictionary, and then I converted it to a data frame from pandas, and then I put it into a graph. So that's an example of API and what you can do with it. I recommend maybe trying Darken at first, just to get up to this point as practice, to where you have the actual bytes. And then if you want to really challenge yourself, you can go to rapidapi.com. What's it called? rapidapi.com. And you can look up some of the free ones. Usually there's like a developer subscription that you can use to pay for different APIs, and yeah, they actually charge you for that sometimes. So yeah, you can go on here and discover the APIs to do whatever you'd like. Maybe you want to do a live sports statistics on a website, right? Like LiveScore. You make a football enthusiast website like with Flask or Django, and you just really go to town doing some awesome live features for the website. Alright, that is APIs. I hope you enjoyed it. I went a little long because I really like APIs. So yeah, there you go. I hope you learned something.